Good morning, security gang. Happy Labor Day, Monday, September 1st, 2025. Thank you all for tuning into this morning's show. We've got a packed one for all of y'all. So if you thought because it's Labor Day, it'll be a slow news cycle, maybe there's not much to pay attention to as a practitioner. Oh, how wrong you are. How wrong you are. A lot to talk about on this morning's show. In fact, as we were prepping, there were so many stories. We ended up having to cut a lot. Like this show could have gone an hour this morning. Easily could have gone an hour. All right. Because of our packed show, we're going to get right into it. So before we do that, let's go ahead and start off with a tradition here. My double espresso this morning. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. So good. I love a great coffee in the morning. Like there's nothing better, especially like on a day like today. Like, hey, it's Labor Day. Everyone's having a good time. Let's get right into this. More and more news coming out now of this Salesforce. Really, it's not a sales, it's Salesforce customers that were compromised through a third-party integration, which is Salesloft's Drift product that compromised their Salesforce environments. So, does that make sense? These customers, like Google, use Salesforce. Within Salesforce, they integrated a tool called Salesloft Drift, which is kind of like a sales marketing tool. And Salesloft Drift was the tool that was used in order to steal the OAuth tokens for these organizations and then get access to their Salesforce environment and exfiltrate these data. So these attacks were carried out between August 8th and 18th of 2025. The attackers were seen searching for AWS access keys, passwords, Snowflake-related access tokens, and other sensitive information. Google attributed the campaign to a threat actor as UNC 639er5. GTIG revealed that the campaign had broader impact than originally believed, and that the Google Workspace customers have been affected as well. The investigation confirms the attacker also compromised OAuth tokens for the Drift email integration on August 9th. The threat actor used those tokens to access email from a very small number of Google Workspace accounts. And again, I think this is the first time in my career of doing the show that I've seen Google Workspace get compromised. So we've seen Exchange. We've talked a lot about Exchange, episode 971. I think I could probably count on one hand how many times Google Workspace has had issues. And this isn't even directly to them. This is falling directly on the shoulders of Salesloft's Drift chatbot, apparently. The scope of the compromise is not only exclusive to Salesforce integrations with Salesloft's Drift, but also impacts other integration. They now advise all Salesloft Drift customers to treat any and all authentication tokens stored in or connected to Drift platform as potentially compromised. Salesloft notifying customers who manage their own Drift connections to third-party applications via API keys to revoke those keys and reconnect using new keys. So third party, your fourth party, really there. It's third party, correct, because you're not going to have Salesloft's Drift product without having an arrangement with Salesloft. But Salesloft is a fourth party product sitting on top of your Salesforce. So there's that confusion there. TransUnion also a victim of the Salesloft Drift. I mean, Salesloft's been doing banging sales. They're everywhere. Look at all these big corporate organizations that have been impacted by this. So now credit reporting firm TransUnion joining the big group of renowned victims. It's almost like an all-star team here. 4.4 million people were impacted by this breach, according to notifications sent to the Maine and Texas Attorney General offices. TransUnion says the incident occurred on July 28th. It involved personal information stored in third-party applications, including names, social security numbers, and dates of birth. TransUnion recently experienced a cyber incident that affected a third-party application serving U.S. consumer support operations. Upon discovery, they quickly contained the issue, which did not involve any core credit database or include theft or include credit reports. They said to the Maine TransUnion, telling the Maine Attorney General, 4,461,511 individuals were impacted by the breach, and it's given them free 24-month of credit monitoring services and a proactive fraud assistance. And again, this appears to be labeled there, although some people are pointing out that this could be scattered spider as well. So continue to monitor. The state of Nevada last week had its offices shut down. They're now confirming that outage was due to a ransomware attack. So now they're on Wednesday of last week, they confirmed that a sophisticated ransomware attack was the cause of the disruption. And so the first and most critical step was to contain the threat. To that end, they took deliberate and targeted action. I love how all of these statements are always the same. CISA has now been involved in the response operation since Sunday evening, prioritizing the restoration of networks for life-saving and critical services and rebuilding affected systems. According to CISA acting director Madhu Kutumakula, he said CISA is fully committed to providing cybersecurity services and expertise to the state of Nevada as long as necessary. This unified response is an example of operational collaboration in real times. So Nevada still recovering. The city of Baltimore seems to never learn a lesson. And I mean that, like they never learn a lesson. Baltimore's been compromised. They've had more cyber incidents than any other city I can imagine. Really, any other city. And they continuously fall forward. The amount of incompetence in the city of Baltimore should get Baltimore voters out and purge their entire city government. Because if this was my city government, I'd be out there purging every single one of them. Vote them out, press for prosecution, because it's got to be incompetence at this point. It's got to be incompetence. The city of Baltimore, victim to multiple ransomware attacks, also multiple business email compromise, now costing taxpayers $1.5 million in fraudulent payments to a scammer who successfully spoofed a vendor, tricked city employees into changing the contractor's bank account information, according to the city inspector general. In a post-mortem of the incident, Baltimore Inspector General Isabel Mercedes Cummings said the city's accounts payable department failed to implement corrective measures after previous incidents of fraud. So this wasn't the first time. They've had it before. They were told, put in corrective measures. And you know what they did? Not our money, taxpayer money. Who cares? In December of 24, the fraudster submitted a supplier contact form using the name of a legitimate company employees, a legitimate company to gain access to the vendor's Workday account. The person the fraudster was impersonating didn't have access to the company's financial, and the email they provided wasn't even company issued address. I mean, how incompetent can one city have so many incompetent people working there? We'll get to more incompetence here in just a second too, by the way. It seems to be resonating along the Northern Virginia, Maryland area there. The fraudster submitted multiple requests to change the linked bank account in Workday, which was approved by 2 employees. 2 people approved it. In February and March, Baltimore's accounts payable made 2 payments of more than $800,000 and $721,000 to the vendor, which they discovered may have been fraudulent. After the recipient's bank informed them of suspicious activity, the city was able to retrieve the smaller payment. The bigger one was gone. The vendor scam is at least the third to hit Baltimore city government since 2019. So much incompetence. Accounts payable director Timothy Goldsby Jr. said that prior controls were not fully institutionalized before the office moved from the Department of Finance to the Office of Comptroller in January of 2023. He said in the wake of the incident, the department is revising its operating procedure. Fire everyone. People of Baltimore, rise up. You deserve better. You absolutely do. This is the kind of stuff that any organization would be able to handle. Please, just get rid of them. Speaking of incompetence, the FEMA IT department was purged by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, firing 24 members of the FEMA IT department, citing a series of alleged cybersecurity failures at DHS that put national security at risk. Among those terminated were FEMA's Chief Information Officer Charles Armstrong and Chief Information Security Officer Gregory Edwards. The firing, announced in a press release over the weekend, comes after an internal audit ordered by Noem revealed that the Department of Homeland Security described as a deeply concerning breach of FEMA systems. Now, they're not talking about a data breach per se. What they're saying is, and we'll get into this in the press release, is significant because you'll see that the press release has described as a team of entrenched bureaucrats who resisted efforts to fix the problems, avoided scheduled inspections. As they were doing the audit, they constantly misled officials. They apparently avoided scheduled inspections when they wanted to come in and look at specific setups or review specific physical controls within FEMA. The DHS press release also talked about the incident follows FEMA's expenditure of nearly $500 million on IT and cyber in fiscal year 2025. Despite this substantial investment, DHS claims the agency's IT leadership delivered virtually nothing for the American people and failed to meet even the basic cybersecurity standards and expectations like vulnerability management. Apparently, they had like a ton of high and critical vulnerabilities in their systems, and they were arguing with CISA and DHS over whether or not those needed to be dealt with. Now, I'm sure there's two sides to the story here, but I'm going to go with the fact that according to the press release, they weren't even patching. They didn't even have visibility. They were spending money on tools they weren't really fully deploying. And so Secretary decided to make an example out of them and fire him. And I'm sure that's a wake-up call for a lot of other people under DHS and in the federal government who are wondering what's happening there. WhatsApp patching a security vulnerability in its iOS and macOS messaging client that was exploited in targeted zero-day attacks. CVE 2025-55177 affected WhatsApp for iOS prior to versions 2.25.21.73 and WhatsApp for Business for iOS version 2.25.21.78, as well as WhatsApp for Mac v2.25.21.78. The CVE is an incomplete authorization of linked device synchronization messages in WhatsApp. Could have allowed an unrelated user to trigger processing of content from an arbitrary URL on a target's device. So they're saying this was a 0-day. They've patched it up. Make sure you get it updated. Amazon on Friday flagging and disrupting what it described as an opportunistic watering hole campaign orchestrated by APT29, also known as Midnight Blizzard, for the Russian intelligence. The campaign used compromised websites to redirect visitors to malicious infrastructure designed to trick users into authorizing attackers' controlled devices through Microsoft's device code authentication flow, according to CJ Moses, the CISO over at Amazon. In recent months, the threat actor has been linked to attacks leveraging malicious remote desktop protocol configuration files to target Ukrainian entities and exfiltrate sensitive data. Since the start of the year, the adversarial collective has been observed adopting various phishing methods, including device code phishing and device join phishing, to obtain unauthorized access to Microsoft 365 accounts. Google said it observed a threat cluster with affiliation to APT29 or weaponizing a Google account feature called application-specific passwords to gain access to victim emails. So again, we're seeing more and more. The end goal of the campaign was to entice victims into entering a legitimate device code generated by the threat actor into a single sign-in page, effectively granting them access to their Microsoft accounts and data. So something to pay attention to. These watering hole accounts continue to get more sophisticated. We talked about Salt Typhoon on Thursday's show. Well, there's more here. Apparently, Salt Typhoon not only targeted larger telecom giants, but also smaller internet and hosting services in the Netherlands. The Dutch intelligence releasing on Thursday afternoon that they didn't receive the same level of attention from Salt Typhoon hackers as those in the US, but it can now corroborate some of the findings of the US investigation with independent intelligence. The Dutch MIVD or AIVD said the Chinese hacker group had access to routers belonging to the Dutch targets. As far as we know, the hackers did not penetrate any further into the internal networks. They just had those there. And again, very, very known. The Salt Typhoon campaign is going to change IT supply chains for decades. There's no way that doesn't change it, especially in Europe. We will follow up now on the story we talked about earlier this month. Earlier this month is September 1st. So last month we talked a little bit about the idea that China was actually using Chinese nationals to write code for military crowd infrastructure with what they called something called digital escorts. We talked about it at the time because essentially Senator Tom Cotton was outraged about this, launching an investigation. Well, now Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that the Pentagon became aware of Microsoft's foreign coder program in July. It took steps to dismantle the nearly decade-long arrangement. This has been happening for a decade. How many incompetent people have been in DoD for a decade to then look at this? Under the program, Microsoft used a global workforce, including employees in China. They have cleared personnel in the U.S. called digital escorts to review foreign coders' work. The problem? Those coders had little coding experience. Those digital escorts had little coding experience, and the Pentagon official were not familiar with the practice. Hextest, describing the program as obviously unacceptable, especially in today's digital threat environment, said he directed officials to ensure the system was no longer active across the entire department. The review comes after Microsoft said in July it made changes to assure that no China-based engineering team are providing technical assistance for DoD government cloud or related services. Now, it's unclear, according to Microsoft, they didn't touch like any sort of classified systems. They were primarily working on the outer edges of the program, but they may have had access to cloud systems categorized as high impact by FedRAMP. And so if that was the case, then they could have essentially built in backdoors. So right now, experts are noting that the U.S. has precious little to show for its cyber defenses after Salt Typhoon and Vault Typhoon, obviously, and now this. So there's that. We'll wrap up with some good guys prevail. Berlin prosecutors formally charging a 30-year-old German man accused of carrying out the Rosenfeld cyber attacks in March of 2022. That was a cyber attack on Germany's energy companies, which caused millions of euros in damages. The Berlin prosecutor's office announcing the suspect faces 2 counts of data espionage, including 1 charge of particularly serious computer sabotage. According to an investigator from the Federal Criminal Police Office, the attacker infiltrated the systems of Rosenfeld Deutschland GmbH, stole around 20 terabytes of data, and deleted critical files that formed part of Germany's critical infrastructure in the sector. The attacker was part of the hacking group Anonymous, and this was launched about a month after the Russia-Ukraine war was kicked off, disrupting and causing nearly 10 million euros or $11.5 million worth of damage to the companies there. So now this person is facing charges. Law enforcement in the U.S. and Netherlands are also announcing on Thursday the seizure of domains and servers associated with VerifTools, one of the largest marketplaces for fraudulent identification documents. This is the marketplace where if you went to it, you would be able to get like fake IDs, fake passports, all this kind of stuff using counterfeit documents. Those domains have now been seized and the marketplace has been taken offline. Now, another one will pop up, but still a little bit of disruption, some intelligence probably getting out of it, potentially being able to go downstream and get all the other sites in the future. We'll see. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern with all the latest cybersecurity headlines. Until then, please make sure to subscribe, follow, like, share, comment. Check out CyberHubPodcast.com for exclusive content. Have a great rest of your day, y'all. And most importantly, stay cyber safe. Thank you for tuning in.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.